what you need is not, just Jude Law, but you need Jude Law with like some like 20 something eager beavers who basically are like fanning out across the Vatican, basically keeping the cardinals in line. And FDR, for example, created something which is now OMB called I think it was called the Bureau of the Budget back then. But it was basically an excuse to send like thousands of his own agents all around the deep state and basically report to him on anything that seemed like wasted money, which was report to him on anything they didn't like. So he basically created this parallel management infrastructure to like master the sort of the old Third Republic administrative state as he found it. And, so, what Jude Law needs in the young pope, what Trump needed, in his like, totally quixotic and underpowered fight against the swamp, was that he needed to be able to delegate to people, sort of completely delegate his authority to people who could actually do shit and manage shit and had that sort of actual energy and attention and staying power. And, that was sort of one of the many things that was sort of missing from that vision of how basically to drain the swamp. I mean, you need basically, you got to have your own people, and those people have to be empowered. And, sort of once you can do that, and once you can basically scale that up, you can do anything. I mean, what basically Jude Law, should have done in this is essentially create his own, and how like the Jesuits are, I forget the Catholic term for this. This is like recognized spiritual association or whatever. Essentially, what Jude Law would have had to do is kind of create his own like militia of Christ, with made of, dedicated tradcasts who had listened to Johnny Cash read the whole New Testament or something like that. And just like, these would be his eyes and ears and his fingers, and you would basically push them into every cranny of the Vatican and root out, all of the corruption and homosexuality and so forth that he found. And, basically create a new institution. Because otherwise, like, and this is, certainly one of the lessons of the young pope in some ways, is that you basically can't take an existing institution and really tell it to do new things. Like, that's just never going to work. And
that's what happens at the end of the show.
Yeah.
Essentially, he just becomes kind of like woke a little bit and is like, all right,
They pull it back slightly,
Slightly.
It's sort of accepted slightly. It's an acceptable compromise for dramatic reasons, but still,
if you take it as it is, they kill him off.
Yeah, they basically kill him off, and the power. But the thing is, it just shows that, the papacy and the presidency sort of have this in common, in that there are so many sort of institutions in our world that kind of pretend to be executive institutions. They pretend to have sort of a command hierarchy, and they're just not command organizations at all. They're basically bureaucracies that run on process. And so in a bureaucracy that runs on process, you have a hierarchy, and it looks like a command hierarchy. And it's really an exception handling hierarchy. It's basically like you have the low-level immigration clerk or whatever, and something doesn't fit their processes, and so you kick it up a layer, right? But that's not management. That's not basically being real management. Is like, I have some resources, I have some direct reports and some indirect reports and some money to spend. I have an objective to achieve. I'm going to use my resources to achieve that objective. Nobody has that kind of power at any level in the federal government. The president doesn't have that power. And the lowest level, like frontline, support lead doesn't have that power. That's not the way the thing works. And so my knowledge of the way the Vatican works is obviously considerably less, than that. But I'm sure it's basically the same kind of thing where, one of the sort of important things that the young pope is showing that's a real lesson about these organizations is that, and this is something that Trump certainly never realized, is sort of getting the title is only the first part of the job. Then your goal is to make the title real. And when you basically skip that part, and then the third, part of the job is to actually use this thing that you've made real. And when you basically skip the second part, you're just constantly engaged in these like clown operations that mean nothing, because You're basically like, people kind of need to play along with you a little bit to maintain the illusion that this thing is real, but it's really an illusion, and you're just not going to get really far with that.